It's so wonderful to see some familiar faces here this evening. Thank you for joining us. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the first installment of our new virtual series, The Virginia Fund Presents. My name is Rachel Sigler, and I'm the Associate Director for the Virginia Fund here at the University of Virginia. And this series highlights areas across grounds that are supported by the Virginia Fund and is meant to provide a space for experts and leaders to gather for a meaningful conversation to better educate about the systematic support that the Virginia Fund provides across grounds. And I'm beyond ecstatic to introduce our esteemed panelists and a program that's truly making an impact across grounds here, and how fitting that we're having this conversation on Mental Health Awareness Day to talk about who's connected. I am joined this evening by Dr. Joseph Allen, who is the Executive Director of the program, as well as the Hugh Kelly Professor of Psychology here at the university. And also he's a licensed clinical psychologist who specializes in working with adolescents. He earned his BA in psychology at UVA and his PhD in clinical and community psychology from Yale. He worked in a postdoctoral research position at Harvard Medical School before returning to UVA as a professor, where he teaches both undergraduate and graduate levels. He's published over 100 articles in journals such as Developmental Psychology, Child Development, and the Journal of Abnormal Psychology. And he's received numerous grants and awards for his being known to inspire students at all levels with the passion and care that he shows for his work and his colleagues. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Allen. And I'm also pleased to introduce two of our best, brightest, and most brilliant students. Fourth year Jasmine Kalaman, who is studying sociology and is originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Sean Goodhart, who is a third year studying environmental thought and practice with a minor in urban and environmental planning, originally from Leesburg. If you'd like to submit questions to the panelists, you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen at any point throughout our conversation and presentation. And then the panelists or I will try to answer the questions as time allows at the end after our main discussion. However, before we dive into a conversation about mental health and well-being at the university, I want to ensure that everyone has the same level of awareness and knowledge of this program, and who better to do that than Executive Director himself, Dr. Allen. Without further ado, the floor is yours, Professor Allen, to provide some insight and some background into the wonderful program Who's Connected.
Thank you very much, Rachel. It's a pleasure to be here tonight and to get to talk about this program, which is near and dear to my heart, and which has been being developed over a decade at UVA with support of institutions and entities like the Virginia Fund. So I'm delighted to have a chance to talk about it and to share some discussion with some of our students and with you. Before I start describing the program, I think it probably makes sense to give a brief sense of the broader context and some of the societal changes that we're really responding to. Over the past decade, what number of observers have noticed is that social isolation and loneliness has been increasing dramatically. And this is even prior to the COVID years. And then COVID, of course, has taken this problem to a whole new level. But it's especially a problem for young people. Generation Z, ages 18 to 22, reports the highest levels of loneliness of any cohort in America, meaning our young people are actually the loneliest of any age group. And this has effects, not just in terms of loneliness, but in terms of well-being. What we've seen, and these are data from a 10-year period from 2009 to 2017, there was a 63% increase in depressive symptoms. And this is in the 10 years prior to COVID. And the data are still coming out. There was a new study just released yesterday that since COVID, these numbers have gone up probably another 30 or 40%, conservatively speaking. Loneliness affects mental health, and people kind of understand that. What they don't understand oftentimes is that it matters for physical health as well. This is a slide from a study, a group that actually pulled together a number of studies conducted over a period of more than a decade, involving hundreds of thousands of people, followed over long periods of time, and looking at risk factors for health and risk factors for dying prematurely. And so we see all the usual culprits on this slide: being obese, heavy drinking, cigarette smoking being worse than any of those two. But what we find is that if you are isolated, lonely, or in high conflict relationships, that is actually a bigger influence on your health, a bigger risk factor for dying prematurely than any of the other three. And that's something people are just gradually coming to realize, but the data are rock solid suggesting that. So the takeaways there are that we're social beings, and right down to our biology, right down to our blood and our bones, and we need good relationships to thrive. And as a society, we aren't doing so well, and it's our young people who are struggling the most. So what can we do about it? Well, that's where Who's Connected comes in. And the best way to describe this is if you think back to your college years or your late high school years, if you were lucky, at some point you found yourself in a group that really bonded. And by really bonded, what I mean, what typically happens is people felt safe enough to begin to let down their guard, to begin to share things they might be concerned about. And then they realized that they shared similar kinds of, concerns. And when you realize that, you become supportive with other people. And when you become supportive, you become more open. And it's a rapid, virtuous cycle that deepens quickly, and relationships get formed that can last a lifetime. We spent a good 6 years working on finding out what are the conditions that naturally lead this to happen, because it happens somewhat randomly. I said if you were lucky, it doesn't happen for everyone. But we said, how do we identify what makes it happen, and then how do we devise a program to create these conditions? And so that's what we want to talk about tonight. So what do we do? Well, the program at the college level, and there's another version at the high school level, but at the college level, it's weekly 1.25 hour sessions for a semester in small groups. And the groups are led by well-trained and carefully supervised student facilitators who you'll be hearing from in the panel discussion. And our goal is to make it safe for people to open up, to make it relaxing, to make it easy, not to force anything on anyone. And when that happens, to help people begin to recognize just how much they share beneath the surface. And then as they do that, they learn that they can give and get support from the people around them, that we're all on the same team. And that's transformative for people. So to give you a little feel, I'll take you through just a couple of the activities. One of the first activities we do early on is a quotes activity. We put up quotes around on posters around a room about the importance of connection. And we have everybody from Lady Gaga to Emma Watson to Martin Luther King to Aristotle. And then we ask our students to pick their favorite, stand by it, and then we go around the room and say, why did you pick this quote? And there's 2 points to that. One is it helps our students realize that this idea of connecting with other people, it's not just our idea, this is a universal across times and across cultures. What it also does, though, is it lets each of the students see other students valuing this, that it's not something that they're the only people who value. And so that immediately makes things feel safer. And then we have discussions. Our student facilitators help lead discussions after this. A few sessions later, another activity we do is a masks activity, where we hand out, this is a little excerpt from it, about ways people hide how they feel. So the comedian who likes to be a bit of a joker, but kind of wishes they could be more serious, or the critic who acts like things most people are worried about are trivial, but is worried about the same things. And then we ask students anonymously to check off if they've used this. And when they've gone through the list of about 10, we then pass the sheets back in anonymously, redistribute them. So nobody has their own sheet. Everybody has just what somebody else checked off. And we go through them and we say, stand up if the person whose sheet you have checked off comedian. And what we find as we do this is that everybody uses these way more than anybody realizes. And then that kicks off a more serious discussion. And then a few sessions later, we have a slightly more intense activity, also done anonymously, where we give people index cards and we ask them to just finish these sentences. If you really knew me, you'd know what I most want people to like about me is, or the thing I worry most about is, or the thing I find hardest at school is. And at this point, people are getting much more comfortable, and some people will share very light things. Other people will begin sharing very intense and serious things anonymously, but then in the discussion that follows, sometimes people will say, well, I didn't write that, but I could have written it. They begin to bond. They see what they share beneath the surface. And then that progresses so that by the end, people are talking about challenges that help define who they are and doing it in a positive way, and often sharing things they haven't shared with anyone, and getting great support both from their facilitators and from one another as part of that. So we started this program, and as we did our initial pilots, we found that 95% of the students said they'd recommend it to another student. But I'm a researcher at heart, and so I felt like that wasn't enough. Let's evaluate this. Let's see if it really is having an effect. And we did the full-scale random evaluation. We took students who signed up for the program, and we had half of them be in the program that we could accommodate, and the other half were waitlisted to a control group for the following semester. Gave them questionnaires at the beginning of the program and the end, and we looked for change from the beginning to the end. And I'm not going to take you through the statistics very much, other than to give you sort of an overview and say we carefully analyzed these. These are statistically reliable. One of the things we find is that the kids in Who's Connected come to feel more of a sense of belonging at UVA over the course of a semester. And rather than go through the statistics, I'll kind of let the students' voices speak for themselves. We asked the students at the end anonymously to just answer the question, how, if at all, has this program changed you? One student said, I feel like I belong at UVA now and know that there are many amazing people that appreciate me for who I am. Another said, I definitely feel like I found my place at UVA more than I would have otherwise. Third says, yes, I feel closer with my dorm community, and I realize that many of us have encountered similar challenging experiences. Okay, students talking about not being alone. One student said, as someone who's generally shy, these sessions allowed me to connect with a few people and realize I was not alone with my feelings and grounds. Third said, I think Who's Connected allowed me to be open in ways I never would have thought to do by myself. It allowed me to share experiences I've never told anyone, and in so doing, lifted such an emotional burden from me. And this is something that happens each semester with at least a few students. This translates into leaving students feeling less depressed than they otherwise would be. One student said, there's been no experience at UVA that has changed my life in such a significant capacity. This is a facilitator. Says, being a facilitator gives me immense joy. I learned so much every semester through this process. Another student that helped me unwind from stress from other classes, reminded me of self-care, and taught me how to better socialize with others. Finally, another student just said, it's dope. We deliberately construct our groups of 10 or so students so that they're as diverse as possible. And one of the things we've been pleased to find is that the effects on loneliness are especially large for students who are members of racial and ethnic minority groups who otherwise would be maybe find some of the most challenging experiences in terms of finding their place at UVA. And that we find a statistical trend for the same thing for students from lower socioeconomic status backgrounds. And beyond that, we're not just helping students be around other people who are different than them, we're helping them get to know them. So one student said, I feel more comfortable making friends with people that are different from me. Another said, it made me feel more connected to people who I probably wouldn't have spoken to if it wasn't for Who's Connected. And finally, students said, these sessions really made me realize that even though people may look different from you, that we're all very similar inside, which we just see as a message that we can't get out enough at UVA, but more broadly. And our facilitators, who you'll hear more from, just two quick things, two quick quotes. One says, I'm sure you can find statistics on loneliness and whatnot, like we just presented, but it's different to see a group going from saying they have no support here to texting each other to hang out and go to events together. Another said, this course is the best thing I do at UVA. It's my favorite part of being a UVA student. Who's Connected has changed the way I approach being a friend and a supporter. I learned more from this course about how to be a better human being and student than any other course at UVA. Program, given this uptake and the response we've gotten, has grown incredibly rapidly, as we've been able to actually handle it in terms of training facilitators. We're working toward expansion currently to other schools at UVA, both Darden and the Comp School. We're in discussions with them. And we're also quite excited. This summer, for the first time, we had a workshop where we trained people from Georgetown University and Virginia Tech to implement the program, and they're now implementing it at those schools. Long-term, our goals are to have a truly deep experience of connection as just a signature part, a defining part of the UVA experience, and to create really this glide path to connection for the entering students. We also want to build this cadre of skilled upper-level student facilitators who you're going to hear from, who are going to have the skills you need to thrive in the 21st century workplace. And finally, we want to build this culture of awareness, understanding, communication, and support across diverse groups of students to really take advantage of the diversity UVA has to offer. This is a team effort. We exist because of the support we've received from Student Affairs, Academic Affairs, Department of Psychology, the Jefferson Trust, the President and Provost Fund, which my understanding is the Virginia Fund is a major supporter of. So with that, I want to turn it back to Rachel and to our student facilitators who can tell you some more about the program.
Thank you so much, Dr. Allen, for that wonderful, wonderful presentation. I love that you could sum it up in the quote of "it's dope" all the way to a deep and meaningful, just hearing all of the different examples. Jasmine and Sean, if you want to join us, I think we're ready to have our portion of the conversation whenever you're able to turn your cameras and mutes on. There they are. Hi, Jasmine and Sean.
Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
All right, so I'm gonna dive in with, I feel like, we have a 2030 strategic plan. We're gonna dive in big and bold, and just for the first question, talk about what do you all think it takes to make, and what are the key components of a thriving community?
Sean, would you like to go first? Or
No, all you. You can go first.
okay. So I think the most valuable key components to me for a thriving community, I feel like the first one has to be obviously like a strong social connection, because a strong social connection is really what makes a community be a community. A sense of belonging and social cohesion, like I feel like they're essential for a thriving community. I feel like everyone, no matter where they are, who they are, people should feel connected to one another and have meaningful relationships and experience some sort of sense of solidarity. I think it's just a beautiful thing for everybody to be a part of. Like that's what makes people be social, like makes people be people, like it's like for the well-being, it's just great. I also think inclusivity is very important because communities all over, no matter where you are, still are becoming much more diverse. And these people from different backgrounds and cultures and perspective, like there's so much that we can learn from one another. And this promotes tolerance and understanding among people, which is a lot of what our world and our communities all over the place needs. Is something that's very important. And I think lastly, I'm gonna have to say safety and security, because this world is turning into a dangerous place. And I feel like safety and security, people should feel safe no matter where they are, no matter who they are. Physical and emotional safety, like it's very important, especially for people that look like me, for people that I go to school with, peers all over the place, even Dr. Allen, Rachel, you, Sean, everybody that's in here, like everybody deserves to feel safe. So I think those top three things are the key components for me.
Sean, do you have anything to add to that?
Of course, that's beautifully said. I could not have said that better. For me, it's, in short, a community that embraces change, in a community that allows you to be authentic, and being able to wake up in the morning and have the feeling of, I have a group of friends that I can count on, that like me for who I am and will support me throughout all of my passions, what I strive to be when I'm older, just friends that really have your back. And I think that Who's Connected does a great job at promoting that to a T.
Can you see why these two are such wonderful students facilitators? My goodness, what wonderful answers. And I'm going to flip it to Dr. Allen to kind of, off of what Sean just said, talk a little bit about, how do you hear, the changing needs of students, and how do you foster those components on grounds through Who's Connected?
There's two pieces. One picks up on what Jasmine says, which is to become not just a diverse community, but a diverse and inclusive community.
Well, we'll flip it, maybe Sean or Jasmine. to kind of what you guys think the answer to that question is what are the ever-changing needs of students and how do you foster that? It must be UVA. Sean, you must live off grounds because I think we may have lost Jasmine too.
It might appear that way. So your question is how does Who's Connected just foster those components on grounds? I guess I have a feeling I know what Professor Allen was going to say is acknowledging that everyone in the Who's Connected group, your lived experiences are all different, and coming together whenever you meet that once a week, acknowledging those differences, but at the same time, find some common ground. And I feel like that's what sparks those initial friendships. You know, you look around, you say, hey, I have some shared experiences with these new people I've never met before. And that's a great starting point for friendships that'll last for years to come.
That's a great kind of segue into my next question, which is, is that what you think then draws students to Who's Connected? And then for you personally, what drew you to Who's Connected?
That's a great question. I did something very similar to Who's Connected in high school. So I really wanted to carry on that in college. And I think most importantly, and I know everyone in college now lived through some part of the COVID era in high school.
Yes.
And for me, whenever I think of that, I was at home for a year. My entire senior year was online, and that was a gap where I was missing social development. It stunted my social development for an entire year, and then I was expected to come into college and kind of know what I wanted to do and find a group of friends as fast as I could to kind of hit the ground running. And I think that there's no roadmap for, the cliche statement, find your people. There's no roadmap for that in college. So that is what, brought me to Who's Connected is, yes, everyone should have a group that they can count on, meet with, share stories with every week. And it'll make their college experience better.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. I always say to parents when I'm speaking with them, I feel like, kindergarten, everyone is learning how to be friends with everyone. And college, in many ways, when you're off into a new social circle, can feel like a social kindergarten. Plus, when you layer in COVID, I'm sure that was incredibly difficult. So thank you for sharing those insights. I just asked Sean to share a little bit about, and Jasmine, I'd be interested to hear your perspective on this too, about, what you think draws students to Who's Connected, and then what drew you to Who's Connected and your involvement and your leadership beyond just what we've heard so far.
Okay. So I know for a fact that UVA is a big talking school. You'll hear anything from anywhere at any time. And honestly, just conversations is how I always hear about Who's Connected. It's what brought me into Who's Connected. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. My thing is when I first joined Who's Connected, I only joined because I saw advertisement for Who's Connected everywhere. I literally did. Like I have no idea why, but I just
Alan, it's working.
yeah, it's working. So I've been with Who's Connected for about 4 semesters now. I was an actual student in Who's Connected during my second year. And just as Sean, I decided to join Who's Connected because I'm from Philadelphia, which is a predominantly Black area, and that's where I grew up with. So coming to UVA, it was a very hard transition for me because, not everyone here looks like me or had the same opportunity as me. So it was hard. It was very hard. And just reading about what Who's Connected is, I thought it would have been a great opportunity to just do it, honestly. And I can't even tell you how much Who's Connected became like such a turnaround for me. Like I live just as Dr. Allen, I live for Who's Connected just as well. Like for anybody that asks me, I'm always very happy to talk about Who's Connected because it's brought me so much joy in my life. Like UVA is Who's Connected is the reason why I stayed at UVA, if I'm being truthfully honest.
I feel like now in your facilitator role, that must be really fulfilling for you to see people enter into the program and have not the same experience because everyone's lived experience is different, but to be able to provide that support. Can you talk a little bit about, especially since you're a fourth year, what that moment feels like for you? And if it's happened, I don't know, I shouldn't assume that it has, but if it has happened, I'd love to hear your insight.
Yes, it has happened. To be honest, I've never thought about that before. So it's very interesting, but as you can see from the smile on my face, I literally can't stop. Who's Connected is literally has like a home in my heart to see people, because I know how much I've struggled with being social and just having a balanced lifestyle here at UVA. Who's Connected has helped a lot because I've learned from students who I've been in a group with, from students I have facilitated on my own, is just wonderful. To see people form relationships is just a wonderful thing, and noting that you've like helped facilitate that, and you know that you're making a difference, is brings me happiness and joy and takes some stress away from my life. So for example, I'm a current facilitator. I just facilitated last night, and to see students who I have first years, and on the first day, first years came in by themselves, knocking, nervous to come in. And now next week will be session 6. And now that they're coming in with each other, like they're walking to class with each other, it's just like just a wonderful thing to see, and it brings so much joy. And I'm sure Sean has had very similar experiences.
I love it. That's fabulous. Can you guys talk a little bit about, since you're both facilitators, about what that training looks like? And then also kind of what that support looks like for you guys as well, because obviously you guys are talking about a myriad of different things of varying levels of vulnerability and severity. So can you talk and speak to that a little bit?
Yes. The way the training works is whenever you decide that you want to be a facilitator and you get into the program, you go through a semester-long training, and you essentially run through in a small group of now selected facilitators, Who's Connected group, and you take turns role playing, facilitating, and just kind of getting the lay of the land. As to how a group might work. And in role playing, you have certain facilitators, they give you certain responses. So you have that kind of on the fly decision making as a facilitator. And in terms of support, it's great. Every week, I know for this semester for me, I meet with Professor Allen once a week. To talk about how our group is going, and I ask him questions if I have any, and he just asked me to just give him updates on how the group is, the dynamic. It's really great, and I feel 100% secure in what I'm doing, and it's just, the support is great.
That's so fabulous. Thank you for sharing a little bit about, what that support is you guys are feeling. One of the questions that I get asked a lot, because I think that this is out of care from folks when I'm out on the road, is, what is the state of student health and well-being at UVA? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And I'd love to hear it from y'all if that's not too big of an ask, because I think you guys are on the ground doing that work. So any kind of things that you can share from moments or bigger topics of conversation would be welcome.
Yeah, I would say UVA is a very prestigious school, and it's hard. Things get really hard very often, very quickly. And one of the things that I know brings me joy and other students joy is that Who's Connected either takes place Mondays or Tuesdays in the beginning of the week. And I think that's a very smart decision, because a lot of students, they dread the beginning of the week after probably having the best weekend of their lives. But having Who's Connected at the end of the day, it's really just a stress-free, relaxing feel, because you're about to talk and have discussion with people of whom you're forming some type of deeper connection with. And it's literally just a weight off your shoulders. Like, how you walk in your house and you just throw all your bags down. That's how Who's Connected is after a long day. And I just really think it's something that every student should want to partake in. Like they should want to do it, because it's really amazing. Like I really can't say anything else other than it's really just an amazing thing.
Well, and the door is open, right? All you have to do is
Yes,
walk in.
yes. Anybody, anyone could join who's connected. I even have fourth years that I'm friends with. They were like, "Wow, that's amazing. I should do it." I'm like, "Well, you had one semester left. You have the opportunity. Like you can really join it." Um, I always hear positive feedback about joining it, and I know that the numbers are increasing every semester.
And Rachel, to jump in a little bit on that, and to kind of compliment our facilitators, they handle some really heavy things that in general, how students are doing at UVA is how students are doing nationwide, which is it's a really hard time. And what Sean said about COVID and losing the year, that plus the pressure young people are feeling, it's a really, the early statistics I gave are for real. One of the questions we get is, well, so, okay, if people are really opening up and sharing things they've maybe never told anyone else before, how do you handle that? And first answer is we've got people like Jasmine and Sean on the front lines who are caring and supportive, and we've sort of trained on how to be caring and supportive. But then on a weekly basis, we're talking to them, and in fact, what we tell them is something happens that you have concern about, call us. They've got our cell phone numbers. Call us immediately, and it's a way that as we deal with a whole range of students, it's a way that we can have eyes on a lot of students in a very personal way that you might not get otherwise with first years who would be mostly in large classes and could be really struggling and nobody would know. But we can only do it if we have facilitators like Sean and Jasmine.
Absolutely. Sean, anything to add to that kind of question? I know this is a big one.
On the state of student health, I 100% agree with what Jasmine said. As she referred to Who's Connected as being, kind of drop your bag, just relax, talk about your day. I often find that I have a good time getting to session early and then talking to students as they come in 10 minutes early for session before we get down into the curriculum, just about their week, how they're holding up over the course of the semester. And I know whenever I participated in Who's Connected on the group side, I really appreciated when the facilitators remembered things. I told them, I had an exam that I was studying for that happened, it was coming up like the following week. And then the week after they followed up and said, "Hey, how'd your exam go? How are you feeling?" So it's the little things that matter. And I think that really promotes positivity and helps the overall area surrounding student health and well-being. So I know for me personally, I just find and get a lot of joy out of talking to students, not only during the curriculum, but before and after session, and just having check-ins, walks, lunches, just throughout the semester.
My gosh, what wonderful and caring individuals you all are to take that work even outside of those small groups. I know you two have gone above and beyond, and that's why you were recommended for this talk. But I want to take a moment to say thank you, because I think young people are struggling right now, and it's important to support. And I'm happy to hear that you all are supported in that work. And I'm thrilled to be able to speak with you about the gravity of that. You teased this a little bit, Professor Allen, but it's a pretty big deal. You guys are now being piloted at Georgetown and Virginia Tech, correct? Can you speak to, obviously, you guys are going through a period of growth because this is an important thing that's happening on grounds, and it's obviously being noticed. I know you said there's high school kind of programs that have also developed. Can you speak to, what the future is for Who's Connected? It's obviously very bright, but beyond that, tell us more.
Yeah, what we're finding is everybody we talk to about the program, in essence, is saying, yeah, this is what we've been missing. That we're looking for something that our students are all alone together. And that's part of the stress. And if they could be alone and share that, then they're suddenly not alone anymore. And the stress level goes down, and the demand at the counseling center goes down, and everybody's kind of doing better. So what's interesting is Georgetown and Virginia Tech, and actually University of Richmond is also going to jump in, and is already sort of committed to jump in next summer. Those are just the three closest schools that have happened to have heard of us. But as I go around the country and talk about our work, everybody I talk to has the same reaction. So our only limit is kind of right now staff and how much, we've, like our staffing to be able to actually handle, training and expanding, but we have plans to kind of, grow that over time. And we're, like I said, I mentioned in the slide, the business school is talking about doing it. We're looking at multiple ways of doing this. This need for connection is actually broader than just first years at UVA. And we're really aware of that. And we feel like we've actually got a way of helping people connect that works. So there are a lot of colleges out there that have sort of first year curricula and resilience courses and things they teach them. As far as we know, we're the only one that has actually shown we can help people actually form deep relationships that are going to matter to them. And it's it's not what we're teaching them, it's the relationships they're forming. And then those just do all the work for us.
My gosh, any reactions from Sean and Jasmine? Because that's a testament, this growth is a testament to you guys' work on the ground. What are your thoughts about this?
Yes, I love that Who's Connecting is spreading to different schools. If it were my vote, I think every university and college should have something like Who's Connected. It's very something that I feel like every student needs. They may not realize that this is who they need, but I promise you this is what they need. And it makes me happy that Who's Connected is expanding so other students can get their own experience of what I experienced. I have never ever heard about a bad Who's Connected experience. I've only heard good things and positive things, and it's just going up and up and up. So yes, I'm extremely glad by what Dr. Allen said.
Joe's fine.
Okay, sorry. I was just making sure.
That's good. Yep. Well, and it's one of the things that a residential college can uniquely do. Like you can do a lot of things online, but like it's, helping people be better adults and human beings and have happier, more fulfilling lives. That's a part of the mission of college. And so we're delighted to be able to do
Well,
so.
that brings me to another question here about the impact and scale of this program on grounds. We'll go out of the regional and back onto grounds here. How does this fit into the larger kind of ecosystem of student wellness at UVA?
Yeah, I mean, this is, we got started because the director of the counseling center had heard that we were doing this in high schools. And she said, is there any way we could do this here? And Nicole Rusick, we teamed up and got some funding support from the President and Provost Fund, as I said, to do this. And what counseling centers are realizing around the country, I've heard that at Harvard, they've done polls and found that half of their students would like to be getting therapy at their counseling center at any given time. And there's no way a counseling center could possibly handle that. And so, a good friendship can carry you a long ways. A good social group can carry you a long ways. So in that sense, we see it as kind of a core piece of wellness. Not the only piece. There are resilience courses, there are contemplative sciences courses. There's a lot of other great things happening here, but we see it as kind of a core piece.
That's wonderful. And Sean and Jasmine, Jasmine, it's closer for you as you are looking to go out into the world. I'd love to hear about the scale and impact of what Who's Connected and the lessons you've learned and the moments you've had. How will you kind of apply that into real world facilitating?
Well, for one thing that I can say that Who's Connected has definitely made me think about friendships differently. It has made me want to facilitate and want different, deeper connections with people who I will not look twice to. Like it's just amazing because you really never know
right
who you become friends with, who you form them deeper connections with. And I think it's also a very great networking skill. And I'm glad I have this. I'm learning and having this opportunity to experience this. So now I could take this wherever I may go after I graduate. But also, I just feel like it's very impactful for me because everybody that has talked to me personally knows this, but I've met a very close friend of mine through Who's Connected. And now she's a Who's Connected facilitator herself. And she actually just got done facilitating not too long ago. But I met someone Who's Connected that I did not think I would be friends with. And now we're literally roommates. Like she's right next door. And I think that's just a beautiful thing. And I know there are probably a lot of friendships that form like that. And to think that Who's Connected started it is very amazing.
That's incredible. Sean, anything to add?
Oh, in terms of my life going forward and what Who's Connected has done for me, I mean, it has, and I always like to think of it as, yes, the students in the group are growing, but I, as a facilitator and a person overall, and also growing during this process, I'm learning more about myself every single semester I facilitate. And I could not be more thankful for that, because that is only preparing me for what I'm going to face in my future, and what decisions I'm going to have to face. But I know Jasmine was talking about how she met one of her best friends through Who's Connected. And I can also say that it was actually just a really funny short story. Whenever I was in Who's Connected in the group setting, my very first semester here on grounds, remember I opened up my door in the dorm, and I walked out because session starts at 5:30, and four other kids on my hall opened their doors at the same time because they were also in the group.
Oh, wow.
So that's like how I met them, and we're still roommates and live down the hall from one another today. So we've known each other and been going for 2.5 years now, which is great.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And how, I mean, organic, I guess is the word to use, of how these groups come together, right? There's not necessarily any systematic way that they're formed other than for the purpose of connection, right?
Exactly.
I mean, what's interesting is people usually become friends with people who are just seem very similar on the surface, right? Come from kind of the same background or whatever. And we're potentially putting together people who aren't similar on the surface. And then they come to discover how similar they are underneath. And then once you do that, you realize, well, maybe I'm kind of got a lot in common with pretty much everybody I meet. I just don't know it yet.
Wow. Wow. All on a Monday or Tuesday evening. That's phenomenal that you guys are able to have those conversations and kind of pull from there. I have one more question from me before we kind of open it up here. If there, as we close out this portion of the conversation, if there was one thing that you wish people knew more about this program or a takeaway from this conversation, what would it be?
I don't think words can describe it, honestly, but
I think you guys have done a pretty amazing job of describing it, to be fair.
yeah, if I were to just jumble some words together, I would say that Who's Connected is just a wonderful opportunity that I think every student will truly enjoy, and every student deserves to have something like this at their school. And to put smiles on people's faces, to form connection, it's just a beautiful thing, and something that a lot of students need, especially during these times that we live in. It's just super important, and just super important. It's just amazing.
I love it.
For me, I mean, I know obviously we're all being at UVA, we can all acknowledge that we've been very successful in our various endeavors through the course of our very different lives. As a group, just coming to Who's Connected and being able to, in a way, put all that aside and just talk and be in the moment together is something you don't really get a lot anymore because of technology and the roles that plays in everyday life. So just being in the moment is really, really valuable. And I know that, as Jasmine said, UVA being very prestigious, we're expected to be on top of our game in the classroom. And I think Who's Connected helps students be on top of their game socially as well. It's a huge help and something that everyone needs. And I could go on and on and on for hours about how beneficial this program is to not only the facilitators, but also the students in the groups. So I just think everyone should do it.
Fabulous. Joe, anything to add?
My passion has become, after studying young people for years and years and then wanting to actually do something to improve their lives, it's not just young people, that we all have the potential for deeper connection with more people than we realize. And so this program, the great thing about it is we can begin to realize that potential. And it's, I think our students in Who's Connected, and especially our facilitators, I think you all have social skills and deeper connections than a lot of adults in the world who are, far older and far farther along in their lives. But we've all got that potential, and it's just so great to see people beginning to really fulfill it.
Well said, all. Well, it looks like I actually do already have a couple of questions in the chat here to ask, but feel free, folks, to type away, and we will make sure that we ask them in the limited time we have here left. The first one is, how can students find information on either participating in the program or being a facilitator?
Super easy. Just Google Who's Connected, one word, or Who's Connected UVA. Either way will get you there. We have a web page, we have an Instagram account, or as Jasmine said, if you walk around grounds and open your eyes, you'll see one of our flyers at some point. But yes, it's super easy to get involved. And we're welcoming people. People are in the process, they get 1 credit if they participate in the program as a student, and more than that as facilitators, because they go through the training program. So people are going to be signing up, and if people watching have students, people are going to be signing up for courses in the next couple of weeks. And we're eager to have them sign up.
That is actually the next kind of question here is, do you register for Who's Connected as a course when you register for other classes?
You sure do. You sure do. And yeah, and space right now, we've probably got enough space, but early is better.
That's fabulous. All right, let me just page through. How can someone further support this program to provide resources to students and can ensure it continues to grow on grounds?
What I'll say is we've been incredibly well supported to this point, that this program wouldn't have existed without support from just sort of from a faculty member's point of view, random sources of funding, from the Jefferson Fund to the President and Provost Fund, all of which have an application process but are super useful. We're really scrupulous with that support. We don't have a pizza party without thinking, do we possibly have the money to do that for our facilitators? So we're very careful. We don't yet have a permanent funding source lined up yet. We've got a ton of support for the administration. So I think everybody kind of appreciates the program. We're not really worried about that, but we don't have it lined up yet.
And I can kind of speak to that as well. I know President Ryan values deeply and has made it a presidential priority, these initiatives. In my work with the Virginia Fund, I see it quite clearly in what's funded. And I'm so grateful that we've kind of had this serendipitous moment tonight to hear more about that. One of the other questions that came through is, has there been any discussion about adding it as a requirement for first years or beyond?
Great question. We have had a lot of discussions about that. And we've decided not to do it. We've decided that if you're in a group and Sean or Jasmine are facilitating and you don't want to be there, one person who doesn't want to be there could ruin it for everybody else. And we're very sensitive to that. So what we're talking now about is making it a soft requirement, meaning letting students know that it is strongly suggested, or having it be one of several ways that entering students can get to know the university better, so that students, it's very one of our biggest challenges is, how do you let first years coming in to UVA with all that they're bombarded with in August, how do they get to know about this program and why should they pick it? So we're looking for ways to do that, to bring more people in. And we're still trying to figure that out, but we decided requirement is not the way to go. That we want, and when students are there, we're quite clear, you don't need to say a word. You get your credit if you sit there and listen for the whole semester. Nobody does that, but this is not a forced intimacy kind of program. This is, we want people to feel safe and comfortable.
Absolutely. That's really interesting. I had not even thought about that. Whoever submitted that, that's a fabulous question.
It's a great question. We've thought a lot about it. We've heard it a lot too.
This one is a little bit longer. While the stigma surrounding mental health has lessened in the past 5 years, to those who still don't understand its importance, what would you tell them?
I would say as a psychologist, without it, you don't have anything, right? That you can be a straight A student and, you know, getting all sorts of awards at UVA, but if you don't feel good about yourself, it doesn't mean much, right? And that's the problem. And Sean, you alluded to this, and Jasmine, this is a very prestigious, you know, high-powered school that has people who are doing extremely well academically and in extracurriculars. But if on the inside it doesn't feel good, what are we teaching people? You know, are we really providing an education for the whole person and not just for the grades you get in a classroom?
Right, that great and good concept
The
comes
great
into
and good, yes, exactly.
in making sure that we're putting out citizen leaders who are aware that their decisions are going to impact the world someday, and it's not just going to be through what they get on a test or how they value themselves academically. So I feel that to my core. Sean and Jasmine, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would have to agree with Dr. Allen. I know a lot of students here, including myself, we often tend to prioritize our academics rather than our mental health, which isn't very a healthy thing to do. And Who's Connected kind of reminds us that a lot of people does it and reminds us to take care of ourselves in a way. And I think that's important in a small move to order for students to become happier with themselves and to take pressures off of them a little bit. So
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, those are the questions that I have for the time being. I'll give 10 seconds of awkward silence in case anyone wants to furiously type away to these bright and brilliant minds a final question. It's a fast 10 seconds, but I'm going to say that is that for this evening. As we round out this conversation, I want to give a huge thank you to our guests for their thoughtful insight and you guys' vulnerability throughout this conversation. It's not always easy to talk about difficult conversations, let alone difficult topics about difficult conversations. So I feel as though very grateful for the thoughtfulness and the intent that you all came into this conversation for. If you want to learn more about Who's Connected, we're going to throw up a screen here at the end that has a link to some of their information, but follow them on Instagram. I just did earlier this evening, and I'm excited to see all of the work that's happening for y'all across grounds and into the region of the DMV and beyond. So congratulations on that work. And I want to, of course, thank all of you for tuning in to this first installment of the Virginia Fund Presents. Your support of UVA and the Virginia Fund inspires and sustains programs like this across grounds. So truly thank you for your support and engagement with the University of Virginia. And until next time, well wishes for a peaceful rest of your evening.